Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game So taking out a fun and exciting episode for you guys today because we're going to be talking about the recent announcement from Wickerwake that he is working on a Taito F2 arcade core and even has one game booting up and playable. And if you know me and you know the channel, I absolutely love some arcade magic, and because I love talking about MiSTer FPGA, definitely doing a video on this one. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. If you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, got a Patreon link down below as well. But hopefully soon we'll at least have a test core for one, if not more, of the games on the Taito F2 platform, which will be absolutely amazing because there are a ton of fun games on the F2, and there's also Dino Rex, maybe the worst game of all time, but I love it for some very strange reasons. But it's one of those things, there's so many amazing arcade platforms you could have on MiSTer FPGA, and after Wickerwake finished up with the IREM cores, obviously he had to move on to something, so it seems like Taito is his next target, which absolutely makes me happy because Taito is one of my favorite arcade developers of all time, and he recently published a video over on his Blue Sky showing off the progress he made on Final Blow. I can't say it's the best boxing game ever made, but it is fun, and it is the first game that came out on the Taito F2, so it does show progress as far as how the core is running. But I need you to remember one thing, arcade boards are not like home consoles. Even though there's a ton of games on the Taito F2, a Taito F2 can employ different bits of hardware depending on what the developers are working on that week or month at Taito. Arcade boards have a tendency to have multiple revisions compared to consoles, so getting one game running doesn't mean every single game is immediately going to run after that. But even seeing the progress we have so far is absolutely awesome, and I love this. And the F2 is very similar to some other arcade boards from Taito, so this work would definitely be a great foundation in getting some other amazing arcade boards from Taito running on the MiSTer FPGA platform. And that's really what I'm always trying to hype up here. There's so many fun games on the arcade side that we don't have yet. People like Wickerwake are making those cores so we can have fun. Something like Liquid Kid, just a straight up 10 out of 10. And also, I apologize, my voice is still a little bit off. I got a cold. Pretty bad when I was up at Midwest Gaming Classic Expo over the weekend, expoing some 3D M2 hardware and doing a panel, so I'm doing my absolute best, but I was stoked to make this video. Something like Liquid Kids is definitely a reason to want to own a Taito F2 arcade board, or at least play a core. Final Blow is a fun game, maybe a little bit of a curiosity, but something like Liquid Kids is definitely a must play. Kind of feels like something like Bubble Bobble meets Rainbow Island meets Parasol Stars meets something like the New Zealand story with all of the Taito charm. These type of platformers were Taito's bread and butter for the longest time, and this is absolutely something that I would want to play on MiSTer FPGA, and I think a lot of other people would as well. And again, that's the fun part about projects like this. Not many people collect F2 boards out there, and while they do all emulate in MAME, having it with that cycle accuracy of MiSTer FPGA would just be awesome. And if you go onto System 16 and look at how many different boards Taito developed around this era, they basically had ADD when it came to their hardware. They would make new arcade boards, change out 2 chips, and just call it a brand new platform. So something like the F2 would also allow for other boards to have a foundational element to start from, and I'll explain what some of those games would be in just a moment and how I offered to help a little bit to make those a reality. But something like Liquid Kids, again, it's just such a fun game. If you've never played it before, you don't need to wait for a core to check it out. You can emulate this on MAME, and it did get other releases, but the arcade version definitely is my favorite. It does show just how creative Taito was back in the day. But like any sort of developer, they definitely had their ups and downs, Liquid Kids definitely being on the upswing of things, but obviously not any single platform is 100% comprised of hits, but sometimes a developer like Taito releases a game so incredibly bad, the internet and I myself just absolutely fall in love with how janky it is, and that game is definitely Dino Rex. I'm going to be referring to this as the Dino Rex core the minute this game works. Trust me when I say you've never seen something quite like this if you've never seen it before. There's absolutely no redeeming value in this game whatsoever, except the fact that it is absolutely hilarious, and of course the one redeeming grace it has is a great soundtrack. So here's your first soundtrack sample of what a Taito F2 sounds like. 45 seconds, I'll be right back and show you more games on the board. I mean, if there's one thing you can say about Dino Rex, that the soundtrack is absolutely spectacular, but unfortunately the rest of it is basically like C-tier ridiculousness. Old Barney the dinosaur over on the left just looks like a man in a plastic suit. Looks like he has a little bit of a glandular problem and has been putting on some water weight. Something about Dino Rex just doesn't work whatsoever, but it is a highly hilarious game, and it is the game that's probably most synonymous with the Taito F2 for all of the wrong reasons. It's basically a meme at this point in time, but it's got a very strange story, and it actually started life as a completely different game, and they give you that game in bonus levels. It's basically a side-scroller, almost like a beat-em-up, and some sort of weird shmup combined together, but they turned it into a fighting game when fighting games are really hitting in the arcades. So it's one of those games on the Taito F2, everyone knows it, pretty much everyone makes fun of it for very good reasons, but it's one of those titles I absolutely want to be able to play a Dino Rex core on MiSTer FPGA. I don't care that Wickerwake is calling it the Taito F2 core, it is the Dino Rex core, and I will hear no different. But it is a game that runs on the F2, and it's one that you definitely have to experience to understand just how janky it is in all of the best and worst reasons. But moving over to a game that doesn't run on the F2, but runs on a variant of a very similar set of hardware, is Warrior Blade Rasen Saga 3. Something like an F2 core would get you maybe about 40 to 50% of the way to Rasen Saga 3. But these boards are quite expensive, so what I said to Wickerwake on Discord was, if he wants to make a Warrior Blade core and he thinks he can get it done, I will buy the board he purchases for research off him at the end, because honestly, why not have another Warrior Blade in the closet somewhere as a backup? And that's mostly just because I want people to be able to play Rasen Saga 3 on MiSTer FPGA, and a Warrior Blade core would be something that could be a derivative of a Taito F2 core, because there's like 4 or 5 boards from Taito, all of the same era, that all like to use maybe 40 to 50% of the same hardware. They were basically like Konami when it came to developing new platforms with old tech. Now moving over to another game that I think a lot of people would be stoked to get, this is Majestic 12. It is a Space Invaders game that basically expands on the entire Space Invaders formula, and I would say Space Invaders really isn't my 100% favorite jam, but there's something about Majestic 12 that kind of pivots the formula up enough to be creative and weird and wacky in all the best ways and actually does hook you in. But I know for some people this would absolutely be an awesome board to have as far as an FPGA core is concerned. It's definitely not a cheap board to purchase either if you want an original PCB, and that is why these cores are so important. It keeps these games alive outside of software emulation, and don't get me wrong, I absolutely love MAME, make a lot of videos on it and support the project, but there's definitely space for more than one way to play Taito F2 out there. If we have software emulation in MAME and we have a MiSTer FPGA core, those two things are not mutually exclusive, and it would be great to have both. And again, I just love this game. It has such a strange sense of humor, including a cattle mutilation level, something you don't expect out of a Space Invaders game. And it also has a really fun soundtrack, so it's your second soundtrack sample as what the F2 arcade board sounds like. Listen, and I'll be right back with more. Some classic Space Invader jams there, but if there is one game over any other on the F2 that I would say you have to play if you have never played it, would be Growl, also known as Run Amok. It's an awesome 2D beat 'em up game. Kind of feels like you're playing an unlicensed Indiana Jones beat 'em up. It is absolutely wild. It's throwing so many sprites around the screen at once, and it's just a game that 100% hits every single time I play it. And that's the exciting thing about a Taito F2 core. There are a ton of fun games on here. I kind of just displayed the ones I want to check out, but if you go to System 16 on the Taito page and check out the F2, you're going to see all of the different diverse games that I didn't cover in this video, because again, these are just the ones I love. And something like Growl, it's just an absolutely wild time. If this isn't just an Indiana Jones game without the license, I don't know what it is. It's got everything you want out of an arcade beat 'em up, and Taito was always making great beat 'em ups. And just look at how many sprites the F2 can push around at once. Sure, they're kind of color palette swaps to keep down on RAM usage, but it's still really impressive to see this level of detail and this many characters running around screen at once, and you're just beating the ever-loving hell out of them. That is why an F2 arcade core is so exciting to get, not just because I love Taito and I love getting new arcade cores, but because the work involved in something like this would be so informative to a lot of the other Taito boards that could come over to MiSTer once Wickerwake finishes it up. So obviously when there is a test core, I will definitely check it out and run more previews. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you've ever played any of these games, and if so, which one was your favorite, because I would be curious. But Taito F2 is in progress for MiSTer FPGA, and the next time there's more to show, I'll definitely do it. But we're done, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.